Well, there was one video I wanted to check out. I think it was by this guy. Yeah, check this out, bro. The Fortnite competitive Iceberg. Let's check this out.
Hello guys, over the past few years, these Iceberg videos have become more and more popular, so most of you have probably already seen a few of them. However, if you haven't, let me explain what an Iceberg video is all about. Basically, you have an iceberg, and the most common myths, stories, information, and facts are all at the top of the iceberg. And the deeper down you go on the iceberg, the more unknown and obscure the topics become. In today's video, I'll go over the entire Fortnite iceberg with a lot of focus on the competitive side of the game. However, I'll also include some topics that will take us on a trip down memory lane. I'll do my absolute best to explain all of the topics as we go along, and trust me, there's a lot in here that the average Fortnite player won't have a chance to know about. So without further ado, make yourself comfortable, grab some snacks and a drink, and let's hop into the video. At the tip of the iceberg, we will begin by talking about the most infamous device in Fortnite's history, the Cronus Zen. This device allowed players for years
The fucking Cronus Zen, bro.
Macros and
Good
no recoil
lord.
without any repercussions.
Made a lot of
In the beginning
careers.
years of Fortnite, this was one of the best kept secrets among a lot of professionals. And a lot of pros that came from games like Call of Duty had the advantage of knowing about it going into their Fortnite career. The Zen started getting more and more recognition towards the end of 2020, and because of this, it shortly after became a bannable offense to use the Cronus Zen or other devices in its category. In most hyper-successful games, you have a solid ranked mode that you can grind, have fun in, and also improve as a player because of the hours put in. Fortnite, however, has always had trouble making good ranked systems. Arena was added on March 27th, 2019, and was Epic's first attempt at providing a competitive experience for those who wanted to become a good player. But sadly, although Arena was a lot of fun, the average player you faced in Arena would be at a very low level. This is because the skill-based matchmaking in Arena was incredibly flawed, and you rarely got lobbies filled with players on your skill level. On May 17th this year, we all had to say goodbye to Arena and welcome Epic's new attempt at a competitive mode, Fortnite Ranked. And although this ranked mode heavily improved the skill-based matchmaking, games in Ranked have never been able to simulate real tournament games because of how there is no incentive for playing for endgame. So everyone
that alone makes
just
it
practicing their
impossible. They
fighting,
took out
and the quality of games
one of
for
like the
stacked
greatest things the
tournament
game ever
practice
had.
remains low. Tokens is another word for playing wagers, essentially playing someone in creative for potentially winning
Tokens made
money.
so
Now,
many
this is
people's
against
careers.
the Epic Games terms of service, so I don't recommend
Yeah, it's
going out there
TOS
playing
now,
tokens.
but dude,
granting
Clicks
these
was like
tokens
the
has
most
been the start
well-known
of
token
many
player back
highly
in the day.
decorated careers. As when you're playing for money, the opponent will try his absolute hardest, meaning the competition will be way harder compared to if you're playing the very same player in a friendly one. It's also generally good players playing these tokens, not someone who aren't confident in their own abilities in game. Some of the players that see major competitive success from tokens are Clicks, Reed, and Pixie. I do need to note that these players grinded it when it wasn't against the TOS. Siphon was one of the most beloved mechanics in Fortnite competitive, but Epic Games decided to remove arguably the best addition the game has ever added. Now, a lot of people have been wondering why. For those of us who have been playing the game for a long time, we all know that Fortnite is lowering the skill gap on purpose. The reason Fortnite does this is because they want to appeal to as wide an audience as possible, which for us competitive players is a little sad because this...
Yeah, dude, like seriously, God, it's so bad, dude. There's just so many like mechanics and then the building aspect and so many different little things you could do in the game. It just makes it more accessible to anybody. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's not just building and shooting. It's so many little intricate things that can happen, and that's why so much, like, that's why I think there's so much like luck involved with this game. Not fully, but just, I mean, just literally because, like, how, bro? I don't know, dude. I don't know, I lost my train of thought, I'm not gonna lie. But, dude, this shit, alright, I just lost my train of thought.
This game has the potential to have one of the biggest skill gaps out of any game in the world. Fortnite sadly decides time and time again to try to lower the skill gap. The saying it's too late to go pro is extremely common in the Fortnite community. For some reason, some people think that Fortnite esports is unique and different to any other esport ever made.
Wait, what was it?
Skill gap. The saying it's too late to go pro is extremely common in the Fortnite community. For some reason, some people think that Fortnite esports is unique and different to any other esport ever made. In all other, and I mean all other popular popular esports titles with a massive player base, there are new players succeeding and entering the pro scene at the highest level every year. This also does include Fortnite, but there are still people who genuinely believes that there's no point in even trying to become a top-tier professional player because those who have played from the start will have such an advantage over you. The truth is that the level of everyone else's current skill makes just one day of practice today as effective as like a full week of practice back just a few years ago. So if you want to become a professional, don't listen to the people with the mindset that it's too late, because it really isn't. Fortnite is one of the most fast-paced games in the world. Being young when you're starting out is a massive advantage.
Huh. So it's very interesting. I don't know. Because someone like me, I'm literally 19. So it's like I've stayed loyal to the game since it came out. But I never actually had a PC until 2021, I think. So all those past years before, when everyone was making a career, I was just playing on Xbox, Switch, mobile, and I was streaming on there too. But I'm not going pro in any of those things, right? So when I finally get a PC, I'm old enough that I have to do something else with my life instead of just play Fortnite. Which is fucking retarded because I know I could be better at the game, considering I have a PC. But now, literally, it's just hard because, like, I don't have as much time as a kid does. And a kid will put in more hours in the game. And it will make them better. So it's really tough because it's not like it's too late to become a pro. It's just literally, like, time and age, bro. Like, this is a kid's game because the kids have more time to play this shit. You know what I mean? Like, if this game was just... I mean, if the competitive modes were better... I mean, seriously, you could have some of the best fucking lobbies in the world, but it's just, it's so mixed and catered to everyone, for everyone to be able to play. It's hard to actually, like, find a good spot to improve, because you're just gonna keep going up against dumbasses, and, like, you don't know who's good and actually who isn't, right? So then you got people saying they're the best, and people saying they're the best when they're not, and it's like, it's really tough. So, I mean... It's not too late to become a pro, but most pros are like under 20, under 18 for the most part, actually. So I don't know. It's very interesting because if you're older than 18 and want to be a pro, you got to put the fucking work in. Like, really. Like, it's an actual job. Because if you're a kid, you have, you know, literally nothing else to do until you finish school. You know what I mean? So that's like the harsh reality of it, but oops. But I mean, yeah. Crazy. If you like the gameplay, but if you want to go pro, you're gonna have to go for it.
The younger you are, the faster you learn. So if you're 14 to 18, you have all the opportunity in the world to succeed, even if you're starting out today. Being older than 18 and attempting to play at a high level will, for the average person, demand more hours put into the game for the same level of success a younger person would have to put way less work in to achieve. Not to say that it's impossible. I do believe that if you start out at, say, 16 or 17 and become successful at 18 or 19, you can still play at the top level until your mid-20s. But starting out early is a major advantage and improvement will be way easier the younger you are. Ping is unfortunately an incredibly important factor to your road to success.
One of the most
Fortnite. Some might say that Fortnite is the most ping-dependent game ever created. Having zero ping in Fortnite is like playing the game on easy mode. Yes. Playing on 30 to 50 is medium mode, and playing on anything above 60 is playing on hard mode. Very few players have been able to succeed at the highest level with 30 is unacceptable. Not to say that there aren't any, because players like Kiriachi, Mustache, and Nanolite have all been at the tip of the top of competitive. But to achieve that, you need to be an absolute mastermind that rarely makes mistakes, as mistakes get punished 5 times as hard as soon as you start getting to the territory of bad ping. Playing with and against good players is the recipe for success in competitive Fortnite. That is the common trait of, so to say, all professional Fortnite players today, that they have surrounded themselves with good players over time. A lot of competitors fail to improve and never become good, because they never get punished for the mistakes they make. This results in them forever having an extremely flawed playstyle. If you're in a friend group with some players who are better than you, and you play 1v1s or 2v2s with them every night, you'll sculpt a playstyle around the mistakes those good players are able to punish. This will be a much more polished playstyle compared to playing with low-tier players. Late starting tourneys is a strategy that has been known for years, and a viable one at that. Depending on how long a tournament is, you late start anywhere from 30 minutes to 90 minutes after the tournament has started. The reason this is such a viable strategy is because not only will your first game become drastically easier, but your following games will also be easier, and maintaining a good mentality while whilst late starting can often also be easier. On 2-hour tournaments like the Solo Cash Cup, doing a 30-minute late start can be a good thing to consider. On 3-hour tournaments, waiting 1 hour can also make your tournament as a whole way less challenging, and you might even end up with a much better placement as a result of this age-old strat. Going under the surface, we have pros using macros.
Just knowing when
Most of us in the community knows that pickup macros are used by players on all skill levels to win more off-spawn battles. If you don't know what it is, it essentially makes picking up loot way faster, to the point where you'll win the vast majority of your 50/50s off-spawn. Macros are against the competitive terms of service, and it is very much an unfair advantage that shouldn't be used. But sadly, we see time and time again that is not the case. In the past, there's been footage of a pro using macros on stream, fully exposing himself to the world. The weird thing about this instance is that professional didn't get any punishment, which is kind of disappointing.
I do not know the streamer he's talking about.
Pros also using macros. That
obviously he's not saying it for reasons,
really
but
everyone knows what
I actually don't know who he's talking about.
Not everyone knows about the different levels of customs in the different regions. Now, I'm no expert on smaller regions like Asia or Brazil, sadly, but here in Europe we have the entry-level customs Discord server, Noble Opens. This one is available for everyone regardless of
so far this is all like pretty common knowledge on
Iceberg.
I mean, that's how Iceberg works. The higher tiers are more common knowledge.
Invite only Discord server.
But this is pretty like base stuff.
You either manage to get 2 session wins, sessions are 3 games by the way, in Noble Division 3, or get into the
I don't really play with good teammates, or I'm not in this scrim Discord. Like,
into Division 2,
I don't know, I don't really care this much. I just rely on the fight that I kill
manage to
everyone.
get to the top of 1,000 on the PR leaderboards, you'll be able to get into the server where most pros actively play.
These are the extra steps the pros
There's also
take,
one
bro.
Discord called NobleX, which is for the top 250 EU players. However,
I
this
literally don't even have
server
time for that
hosts,
though, because
so
I don't even
24/7
think to join
is where you
scrims.
wanna
I'm
get
literally
in.
just
And then
like,
AC,
alright.
you have Manu Scrims,
play the
which is their
game.
open custom server. Anyone
You
can
know,
join.
people just
When you climb the
like
PR leaderboards
these fucking
just a
kids, they
little
got
bit, you
time
can
to
join
do
Vital
this shit,
Scrims,
so
which is NAC's
they're better.
highest level of practice. Cray was a player that saw great competitive success from a heavily unorthodox strategy, peeling off until the very final moving zone. The strategy was based on having an incredibly smart pre-planned
that was
route and
him?
plan in every game that he played to ensure that he had enough healing to stay in the storm for 15 plus minutes. Because of Cray's unorthodox playstyle, he quickly became a massive content creator, and sadly, because of his success in tournaments, a lot of other players also copied the strategy, eventually resulting in Fortnite taking action, adding mechanics like storm sickness, which made it impossible to heal off for an extended period of time, like Cray did in his prime. Over the course of this game's lifespan, there's been a lot of pay-to-win pickaxes.
I actually didn't know that was the
these issues
guy.
continue happening even to this day.
Oh, the fucking Star
for
one.
instance, did 56
Yeah.
damage instead of 20 damage to the body, and it gave you a running speed
damn,
boost
56.
when equipped. And
Oh,
first
shit,
of all,
that's
this bug
crazy.
happened on a solo cash cup day. Another pickaxe that was heavily paid to win was the Dragon Rune pickaxe.
What
This
the
pickaxe,
fuck
for some
is that
reason, made
pickaxe?
footsteps completely
What?
silent, and
Wait,
abilities
what is
that was
that?
incredibly overpowered.
Hello?
There have been countless pay-to-win pickaxes from the very start of this game and all the way till
What,
today.
in the
Some
Reddit?
pickaxes, like the Catwoman's grappling claw pickaxe, has even been proven to give you less input delay than other pickaxes. When Arena was still in the
Jackfish
game,
shit
a
on.
lot of content creators wanted to be the player with the most amount of arena points. Having an insanely high number of points.
Oh, I think you said the
meant that you would
Catwoman
get great
pickaxe too.
viewers
The
on
Catwoman
Twitch and
pickaxe has
YouTube.
like
And if
less
you were able
input
to be
delay.
the #1 player on the arena points leaderboards, that would give you even more credit. Sadly, the grind for the #1 spot was highly unethical by most of the players competing for the title, because most of the
Yeah.
players competing for the most amount
Shout
of
out to
arena
Fortnite
points
for
were
making ad
casual.
bits fall
A lot of
off.
them got exposed as well. People saw that the input changed
countless
from
others.
keyboard to controller overnight, and they also saw 24 plus hours of playing arena. Some of the players competing for the first place
think I
spot
shit on
even
one
played
health.
with cheaters to
That is
eliminate
what-
the entire lobby in just a few minutes to get as many points per hour as humanly possible. To say the least, the people who knew how those content creators got those points weren't impressed. But for the average Fortnite viewer, seeing arena points in the hundreds of thousands was incredibly impressive. To those of you who have dabbled in a bit of Fortnite competitive from time to
people
time, you'll
really
all know
wanna
the
get
term
clouded from
dead side.
getting a lot
The term
of arena
refers to the
points.
set of zones where the least amount of players are, based on the previous rotates everyone has had to make. So if a
that
zone is
side.
pulled from north to
That
south,
side, that
the
side,
north
moving
side
that
of that zone
side.
will be the contested side, and the very
GGs.
south side will be the uncontested side,
South
or
side.
the dead side.
Hey, what you know
Utilizing
about
the dead
South
side
side, the
nowadays
producer?
is not as viable a strategy as in the past, because a lot of players like to play the dead side, and a lot of people had knowledge of what it is. But when this way
Yeah.
of playing the game was first brought to light, it was an easy way to secure some super solid tournament performances. In order to track your progress
kinda
as a
tough,
competitive
huh?
player,
Everyone just
Fortnite
knows
Tracker
everything.
is the place to do so. PR stands for Power Rankings, and it's a score you're given based on your recent tournament
I actually don't know how
performances.
much
Now,
PR
a lot
I
of
have.
people have an opinion around how PR don't matter. But in my very own humble opinion, the only thing that classifies how good a player is at the game is their tournament placements. And if you're like me, then using this website to find potential teammates is the way to go about it. Storm Surge is a mechanic added to Fortnite competitive to punish players who play too passive. What it essentially is a 25 damage per 5th second punishment for being one of the teams that has dealt the least amount of damage in the lobby. Whether this mechanic is activated or not depends on the remaining players in different zones. The first Storm Surge cycle gets activated only if there's 91 players or more when the first zone is fully closed. The next Storm Surge cycle becomes active if the fourth zone appears with 79 or more players in it. Cycles like these happen all throughout the game of competitive Fortnite, but will only appear if the game is ridiculously stacked on players remaining. The last active Storm Surge cycle is in the 10th zone, where you'll only take damage if there's 31 or more players up. The story of why this mechanic is added is actually quite funny, as in the start of Fortnite competitive, there was no such mechanics. The consequence of no one getting punished for
what players are here? Who the fuck?
Playing super passively is that the games became unbearably
Who the
stacked,
fuck are any of these guys?
and excruciatingly boring to watch for the average viewer, as no one engaged in fights until the
Fake
very
smiley.
few final zones. So in many ways, the only reason Storm Surge is a thing is because Fortnite isn't able to supply good enough servers for their millions of competitive enjoyers. One of the most effective ways to exponentially improve
And to make
Fortnite
it more
competitive
creative,
is by going into a
more
replay
entertaining,
and watching
maybe.
professionals play. This is called VOD reviewing, and the way that it's often done by good players is that they see what their weaknesses are. Say they get eliminated in the 11th zone a lot. What they then would do is hop into a replay of a top tier team like Maron Cooper, Damien Setti, or Queasy and Veno, and pause the replay right before the 11th moving zone plays. They then think, what exactly would I do in this position with these mats and these weapons? Then they mentally play the game through in their head. After doing so,
these
they
fucking
play the
kids, they
replay
got
and
time
see
to
what the
VOD
top
review,
tier
bro.
players do. They find
Like,
out
I'm
why
making
they
my
play
own
differently
content.
than how they would have played it.
They
And
got time to VOD
understand
review
that
and then some
playing
other
it in the way
12-year-old
of the
fuckers
pros
editing
might
for
be
them,
beneficial.
making money
This can
on
be
the
done
side.
for any aspect of the game. Fighting,
Insane.
rotates, early games, or end games. And it's a tool that is highly effective for improvement. Now we're heading in the dark. And XMP is something all competitive players need to know about. Sadly though, there are
We're
still
heading in the dark,
thousands of players who
XMP.
don't know
Good
about
lord,
this
if you don't know
massively
what XMP
performance-increasing
is,
setting.
oh
XMP is a
my.
setting you turn on in your BIOS, and the
Bro.
setting allows your RAM to work at full speed.
Literally
often
make
meaning
sure,
you'll get a
like,
very significant
what is it,
performance
bro?
increase. If you haven't
I
yet
forgot what
tried
it's
out
called. Just
XMP
make sure
and
your
you're
RAM's,
unsure on
like,
how to turn
right
it
in
on,
the
simply search
BIOS.
up how to turn on XMP,
And then turn
follow
on
the steps
XMP if
given
you
in the
have
most
it. It's
popular
like a
videos
boost
that
for
show
your
up.
RAM.
Not everyone has the opportunity to
After
turn it
you
on,
make
but I believe
sure
most
that
of you will have it
you have
available,
all
so
your
make
RAM,
sure
like,
to check
good.
it out. To get better
Like,
aim,
if you have
a lot of people
3600
play
RAM, make
Poleaxe.
sure it's at
One thing that is
3600
often
RAM, not like
overlooked is how
1200 some
playing other
bullshit.
games actually make you aim
That's pretty
better in
basic.
Fortnite. Counter-Strike, Valorant, and Osu are some prime examples of other games people play to increase their aiming abilities. This might sound insane, but players like Revsguard, C-Andy, and NS all have insane aim, much thanks to playing these games on the side. The reason improving aim in Fortnite competitive directly is so difficult is because the amount of times you actually have to aim, especially with your shotgun, in the span of a 30-minute game, is honestly quite rare. Meaning improving aim from just playing competitive is a highly ineffective way to go about it. Q timing is a skill that is very often overlooked when it comes to succeeding in tournaments. Earlier we talked about late starting, but Q timing is knowing when to Q in the middle to end of a tournament and not the start.
This is also
Another
true. This is what I was
strategy
talking
is to
about
queue into a
earlier,
game
just knowing when to
around
queue.
17 to 15 minutes before a tournament ends. This game is widely recognized as a W key game. What this means is that this lobby will most likely be very dead and rather easy to play because everyone is trying to W key, get as many healing points as possible, and then back out when it's 5 minutes remaining to catch the final queue. However, what a lot of good players do is play this game out, win it, and qual to tournaments because they capitalize off of winning the easy games where everyone is backing out. Throughout a tournament, you have a few set times where the games will be
Damn,
much
we
harder
died.
and
Fuck.
much easier. If you get eliminated 20 minutes into a tournament and you got a lot of elims in that game, your next game will be remarkably hard, as you get into a game with others who have succeeded in W keying the first lobby and getting a lot of elims. In other words, good fighters. But if you wait just 10 minutes, your lobby will be a ton easier. A rule of thumb is that the lobbies are easiest on 45 minutes of every hour. So 45 minutes into a tournament, 1 hour and 45 minutes into a tournament, and 2 hours and 45 minutes into a tournament. The opposite can be said for 20 minutes. On the 20-minute mark of the first, second, and third hour, the lobbies will be the hardest. Another strategy that is incredibly solid is aiming to play in nothing more than 7 games in a 3-hour tournament. So you won't have to waste any time in queues and games where you go down early. The strategy is to start off the tournament with a win and as few elims as possible, preferably 0, so you can cruise through the entire tournament, not ever getting into the hardest lobbies. Teaming will forever be a problem in top tier competitive tournaments like FNCS. It has happened multiple times in the past, and it will continue happening in future cups. The worst examples happened during the solo FNCS tournament, where it was obvious how some of the best professionals in the world had pre-planned agreements with some of their friends to play in a certain way. Surge trading is also extremely common, and unfortunately it still happens today. Console tournaments can be argued to be the most recent worst place for teaming, as watching the PlayStation Solo Cup looks more like a duos tournament than most of my actual duo cash cups.
Is that an actual like fact?
Is making it harder and harder for legitimate players to succeed at the highest level in important tournaments. Getting some free surge is not going to win you FNCS though, but it sure helps a lot. So I don't believe we'll stop seeing this happen anytime soon. Both Chapter 1 and 2, the replay system for tournaments was extremely flawed. And to those coaches who knew how to exploit it, this was the perfect opportunity to give their players a super unfair advantage. What a coach could do was hop into a replay just 2 minutes after a player had started their game. This would give the coach freedom to use the drone free mode in the replay to find items such as launch pads, llamas, and all other OP items that their clients might have needed.
Hold up. So what? So the replays used to be like Twitch. Like, if you started a game, you just wait a little bit, then go into a replay, and you could see the game as it's loading. Just like Twitch, when you go live, and then the broadcast is still showing while you're live, you could go back. What? I'm tripping balls. What the fuck? Oh hell no.
Exploit it. This was the perfect opportunity to give their players a super unfair advantage. What a coach could do was hop into a replay just 2 minutes after a player had started their game. This would give the coach freedom to use the drone free mode in the replay to find items such as launch pads, llamas, and all other OP items
how have I never heard of this?
To succeed in the game. Not only that, but they could see where the other players in the lobby was rotating. And although 2 minutes might sound like a long time, this was actually a career maker for a lot of known players today. Being able to be given this information and essentially having X-ray in the games they were playing made the games so much easier to perform well in. The names of the coaches and players who exploited this are extremely well known, and all of you have undeniably heard about multiple of the players and coaches who did this very thing. The Fortnite World Cup was one of the biggest esports events.
I can't name one off the dome.
When Buga won it all in 2019, some people came with a theory that the World Cup was rigged. The thought behind that claim was that Fortnite wanted to do everything in their power to make the winner of the Solo World Cup a marketable person. If a player who was highly controversial won the Solo World Cup, then that wouldn't have been a good outcome for Fortnite, as the World Cup winner very much became the face of competitive Fortnite. Weirdly enough, out of all 100 competitors, one player stood out to be extremely likable, humble, and marketable. And that player was Buga. After the games had concluded and the theory became somewhat widespread, statistics of the tournament came out. And it turned out that Buga actually didn't get lucky. In all honesty, in the 6 games they played, it was quite the opposite. So the theory quickly got debunked, but it was an interesting thought that lasted for a few weeks. Having a custom operating system is one way to drastically improve your Fortnite performance, and it's something the average player wouldn't know about unless they're told. Sadly, there are very few videos on YouTube going over how to set up a custom OS. The OS that is my favorite is Windows LTSC. However, you can extract way more performance out of more customized operating systems if you do some research. If your performance is holding you back heavily, I would recommend looking into it, as it can actually be career changing the amount better your game will feel with a performance focused operating system. Everyone remembers the first few skirmishes, the summer and...
Okay, anyways, custom OS. I do not know shit about that, to be honest, but I'm gonna look into that.
Full skirmish. However, what a lot of people might not remember is that the minimum age to compete was 16. Because of this rule, what ended up happening was that the players aged over 16 who got invited sometimes gave their Epic account to younger talents that didn't meet the minimum age requirement so that they can play, place highly in those tournaments, and take home a lot of money. Some of the biggest names in competitive today did this when they were as young as 13 and 14 years old and secured a good chunk of change. The deal was, of course, that the younger players would get a percentage of what they won for the person who actually got invited. The Llama
Wow.
and Pathfinder Discord was a weird period
Get
of
your
competitive
bag.
Fortnite. What you had
That's
to do
pretty
in order
crazy,
to get
honestly.
a map of where all llamas and pads were in your game was to take a
Can't really be
screenshot
mad at
with
that.
a big enough HUD to the point where the Discord would be able to automatically read off your game ID. A few seconds later, a map would be made and all pads, llamas, and other OP items would be shown. Needless to say, exploiting this Discord was not allowed. However, to my knowledge,
Hello?
nobody ever got punished for using it. These things we're getting into now really showcase
Alright,
how
who
Fortnite
told who
competitive
about
can be
this?
highly
Like,
unfair. Because
hello?
imagine just knowing that you'll get a
Wow.
pad or two in every game you play. The Discord was luckily shut down after
How,
just a few
dude?
weeks of being online, but still, that was enough for some players to make a very good amount of money from
Jeez.
tournaments. In 2018, custom game matchmaking wasn't a
Wow.
thing that anyone had. If you wanted to do scrims, you had to do what was called snipes. Snipes was when a big amount of players all raided at the same time to
early
try and make
stream
competitive
sniping.
lobbies. A great snipes lobby was when 60 of the players in there were actual competitive players. However, the average snipes lobby was more like 30 to 40 players. But every now and then, in 2018, Epic themselves would host some very confidential scrims with a pretty insane prize pool to test potential custom game matchmaking. Now, the players that participated were not allowed to publicly talk about these scrims at all, or the fact that playing customs was even a thing that was possible. Playing these scrims led to a lot of successful competitive careers, as the players who participated in them got exclusive rights to play against other top players in the region, a luxury no normal players ever got to experience at the time. When we're talking about 2018
Jeez.
Fortnite, there's
That's
one
crazy.
thing I vividly remember, and that was betting sites trying
That's
to enter the game. The
crazy.
one site I want to talk about was a site where you could bet on yourself winning public games of Fortnite. Naturally, when me and my friend group heard about this, we thought that's easy money, and shortly after, we found out that we were right. Not only did the site pay you 15 times your money for winning games, but the cash outs were also legit. There were people in the community that made over $500 a day using this website. But after some time, the website of
God.
course ended up getting shut down, but the website held its promises and you were able to
What?
cash out your winnings. Needless to say, after that site's attempt, there weren't many others who gave it a go. In any sport or esport where there's a lot of money to be
Wow.
made, there will be people using performance-enhancing drugs, or PEDs for short, and Fortnite is no different. Now, PEDs in gaming and traditional sports are obviously not necessarily the same at all. PEDs that are abused in FN focus on making you more concentrated. Naturally, doing this is not good for you at all, and the potential rewards will outweigh the risks, as these substances are very hard on the heart. However, at DreamHack Anaheim,
I'll be using
there
the
was a
opposite
pretty big
substance.
incident. And when playing online, there's really no way for Epic to ever punish the abuse of this stuff, which is sad because this really is one of the worst ways to cheat. Mayhem was a client back in the day, very much like Unite is today, a way to play custom games and track leaderboards for the sessions you play. Mayhem eventually ended up shutting down, and they did so very conveniently after getting a lot of accusations for being a Bitcoin mining software. Now,
Okay.
I'm not going to sit
Well,
here and say that Mayhem mined
GG's,
Bitcoin
brother.
on PC without you knowing, but I will say that most
You
of my
own
friends,
Bitcoin,
and
not
myself
anymore.
included, noticed a very significant decreases
Better have that
in our
ledger on
PC's
you.
performance
Fuck.
after downloading the client. If the case was
Yeah,
that Mayhem
fucking
indeed
14-year-olds
was a
getting
Bitcoin miner in
busted for
disguise, they would have made
Bitcoin.
hundreds of thousands of dollars off of the Fortnite community alone.
Jeez.
Mayhem was the biggest client for third-party tournaments, but since the original owner no longer had anything to do with the product,
Can you be
whether it was
14
a
and even
Bitcoin
do
miner or
crypto
not
shit?
will forever remain a mystery. Old zones are predictable in Fortnite. Well, this was very much the case in the past when it was only 9 zones and not 12. And everybody who knew how to predict zones naturally didn't want this to be public information. But on April 12, 2022, Kinch Analytics released an absolute banger of a video going over how to predict the mid-game zones of a game. What was surprising was that this video only got 25,000 views. Kinch, however, didn't include how to predict moving zones. And I have a feeling that that is because he might be working with some professionals. This man is extremely smart, and he probably don't want to reveal too much to the average player. iDrops_bodies is one of the most
Oh,
infamous
GGs.
players in all of competitive Fortnite's history.
We know, but
If
we
you don't know
don't.
his story, here it is. In week 2 of the summer skirmish in 2018, he was invited. Arguably the most unknown player out of everyone in that exact tournament. Everyone else was streaming the second week of this major tourney, but he wasn't. After the time was up and the cup had concluded, he got first place.
Wait, in what
Unknown
tournament?
player out of every week 2 of the summer skirmish in 2018, he was in
Week 2 is
first
summer
place,
skirmish.
winning $60,000. Surely, after a performance like that,
Whoa.
we could expect
Wait,
first
hold
place, winning $60,000.
Whoa, okay. So this random dude drops In Summer Skirmish 20. Okay, wow. Alright.
Surely, after a performance
bad
like
for those
that,
skips,
we
but
could
wow.
expect to see more of this underrated talent. But no, he never participated in another tournament ever again. Directly after he disappeared from the Fortnite community, another controller player by the name Unknown Army started seeing great tournament success with an extremely similar playstyle. Unknown Army, at the time of the Summer Skirmish, couldn't participate in it because he was under the age of 16. The similar playstyle and the timing of this entire situation made some people think that iDrops_bodies was Unknown Army. But now you might ask, why didn't Unknown just play under the same name, iDrops_bodies? Well, after iDrops won the Summer Skirmish, everyone started accusing him of cheating, and understandably so. He wasn't streaming the tournament like everyone else participating, and he also was probably the most unknown player competing, so it was very weird to see him win.
So he's gotta be
Disappearing
dog
and coming
shit.
back with a new name would free him from all these accusations, especially considering no one had ever heard his voice or even seen his face. Now, listening back to this theory, it sounds insane, but at the time it made a lot of sense. The truth of the story of iDrops_bodies is that after winning he received an unmatched amount of hate, toxicity and negativity, so him not continuing his competitive career isn't weird at all. When you do something absolutely incredible, like winning 60k in a tournament, you don't expect to become the most hated player in the world. But for iDrops_bodies, this was sadly the reality. Bush Paranoia was one of the very first Discord servers ever made in Fortnite for genuine competitive improvement. It also, to no surprise, turned out that that server hosted the first real Fortnite practice. Talking about this server gives me goosebumps thinking of all the first real Fortnite practice. Talking about this server gives me goosebumps thinking of all the good old times. This server was part of the reason behind some of the best players ever success. Players like Metro, Giganza, Vilix, Magan, and Queasy. If you got to experience the community around Bush Paranoia, you're a lucky man, because the genuine passion in that Discord server will never be matched by anything ever again in Fortnite. The Boombox. An item that most players have forgotten all about. If you don't know what the Boombox is, let me explain. It was an item you threw down on the ground and all of the builds around it will get destroyed. This item probably took a couple of years of my life. That is how brutal playing this game
Can we
was
not talk about the
during
boombox?
Many players categorize the sword as the most broken item ever. But for me, this item was way worse. Even just writing and talking about it, I'm in pain because of how unenjoyable this item made the game. Polaris was the very first significant open LAN event in Fortnite competitive's history. The LAN had players like Metro, Nyrox, open LAN event in enjoyable, this item made the game. Polaris was the very first significant open LAN event in Fortnite competitive's history. The LAN had players like Metro, Nyrox, Mr. Savage, Marin TM, iDrop, Trippern, and many more noticeable names. The LAN was held on September 30th, 2018, and the host of the entire event, believe it or not, was Reno, the owner of Become Legends. The prize pool at the LAN event was $10,000. And for many, going to this LAN was the very start of a highly decorated career. As you can see here, this was the top 15, and there are more recognizable names on this list than not.
Metro, Nyrox, Mr. Savage.
I also managed to squeeze in on the 13th spot, which I remember being extremely sad about. It's actually crazy how many of the players all the way from 2018 are still active figures in the community today. And to be honest, I think it was something crazy in the food there or something to have made all of the careers that it has. The Intel i210 T1 chip is one of the best hidden secrets in competitive Fortnite. Have you ever seen pros taking vaults like 9 out of 10 times and you wonder why in the world you're never able to do that even though your ping isn't bad? Well, chances are they have this in the PC. Not only will your ping go down by getting this for your setup, but your average internet speeds on your PC will also most likely increase and stay more consistent. Naturally, the speed of your internet doesn't determine how good your ping is, but it is a little bonus. This network interface card will be even more effective if you bought a pre-built PC. Pre-built PCs often come with cheap motherboards with bottom-line network interface cards. So if you have good internet,
trying to get a pre-built PC, dual PC setup, put this Intel shit in there, the gaming one,
drop a
we
link
got this
for it
shit,
in the
bro.
description of this video to where you can get one. Software is mostly very easy for anti-cheats to detect, so going online and downloading some cheats will in most cases rightfully get you banned. However, there are some bizarrely smart people out there who makes cheating motherboards, keyboards, and gaming mice, implementing the cheats into the hardware, rather than having to download a software from the internet. If this is done professionally, it will be 100% undetectable. And I know for a fact that cheating motherboards are being used by a few players very high up on the PR leaderboards. For LAN events, having gaming equipment with cheats inside of them could potentially be a massive problem.
What a great idea.
Now, I'm not sure if anyone has ever used cheats this way at a LAN, but it's definitely possible to integrate cheats into your mouse, keyboard, or motherboard, as previously mentioned. It's also possible to add a certain key combination to destruct the cheats, so that there are no traces left of it on the PC. This does require a high level of software development understanding. So luckily, it's not super easy for the average person to get their hands on something like this, but it is out there, and it is a very well-kept secret. Having a dual PC setup allows the potential of having a radar on your second PC of where everyone in your lobby on your main PC are. It's basically like having Volax, and it's sadly completely undetectable. Imagine going into a tournament and you'd have a map of where everyone is at all times in the game. You'd be able to make the easiest rotates and secure good placements in every turn you play. Cheating in Fortnite is unfortunately something that's going to be around forever. However, I'm not someone who believes that the best players in the world are cheating, because they're not. There are sadly quite a few players at the medium to good level who are playing unfairly. I also think it's kind of weird that a lot of things about the competitive side of the game are being gatekept, like the Intel i2-10T1 chip. That's exactly why I wanted to make this video, to unveil some of the things you almost can't know about unless you're told. I want this game to be an even playing field, no matter who you know and who you are. So hopefully I talked about a thing or two you didn't know about in today's video. Guys, thank you so much for spending almost 30 minutes with me today.
That dual PC thing actually works?
Now, of course, as always,
wait, what is he talking about?
And you'd have a map of where everyone is.
What is he talking about?
Second PC of where everyone in your PC setup allows the potential of having a radar on your second PC of where everyone in your lobby on your main PC are. It's basically
okay, we're not going to get into that, because if you care that much, you better look into it. What in the dog shitter? Bro, I was just saying a dual PC setup as in general. That shit gives you another advantage? Dude, what? So you can have a dual PC for performance, add the Intel and the gaming pre-built fucking PC with the maxed out specs, use the second PC to figure out where everyone is on the map. What the fuck? This game is insane. This game is just, good lord. And then all these secret games and shit too. Wow. What a game, bro. What a fucking game. What a good video too. Good video.